Hey everybody, it's Kara CrossFit Brindle. Welcome back to the channel. I have another, powerhouse. I'm kind of Twitter baited at the fact that Ed is on my channel. This is Ed. You don't know who he is yet. Some of you do. This is Ed. Yay! So Ed is one of my colleagues on the financial therapy side, and we're here to talk about his book. So Ed, do you want to introduce yourself to folks who haven't heard of you before?
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. My name's Ed Combs, and I am a financial therapist, couples therapist, and fee-only financial planner. That's a mouthful just unto itself. Um,
But amazing, all amazing.
it is amazing, and I appreciate the affirmation. And it's really a lot of it's been a journey of necessity. And we'll connect to why did I write this book? So, I
Yeah.
didn't wake up and say, you know what, I want to have three graduate degrees and expertise in multiple different disciplines and marry them together. There was no grand vision for that this is how life would play out. It was started from me being a professional firefighter and hearing the guys around the firehouse complain about their wives and money and being
Mm,
19, 20 years old and pretty impressionable. I was like, I don't want that problem.
yeah, understandable. You're like, they're making this sound awful.
They did make it sound awful, and with some reflection and perspective, not all the guys were talking about their wife negatively, but that the magnitude of negative comments can just kind of cloud the whole thing, right?
Mhm.
But the good news was there were some guys that I really admired and respected, and they said, "Hey, Ed, you need to work with this guy Clark. He's our investment guy." Now, I didn't know what the heck an investment guy was.
Sure. Sounds kind of fancy, a little ominous even.
Yes. And especially when he shows up and he's a 55-year-old bald white man who wears suspenders and slacks and drives a Lexus.
Mm-hmm.
Not the type of people my family grew up with. But he
Yeah.
was very nice. He was a member of the Rotary Club and, all the nice social things. And, so he would come by the firehouse and he started teaching me about investments. And so Clark is someone I give a lot of credit to for setting me on this path of financial advisor and what is that? And just because he made it very approachable. He took a very educational approach, and it's like, this is pretty cool.
Yeah. Like lit a fire under you to like go down a certain path. So I reference you as a powerhouse because you've had a lot of leadership roles in financial therapy so far. Do you want to
Yeah.
speak to any of those and how those have also shaped this book or the book shaped them, maybe? Either
Yeah,
direction.
I mean, because this is a community of therapists, you're going to understand, right? It's a complex interweave of all these factors, and what is the causal start at this to start that is sometimes a little nebulous. But my most recent role with the Financial Therapy Association was president of the Financial Therapy Association, and that was an incredible honor that I've been involved with the Financial Therapy Association about 8 years, and I've been in just about all the board seats up to the president's seat. And so it really was a culmination, and it's so exciting that it happened at the time that it did. Is we have
Mhm.
a really nice blend of people that have been around for quite a while, people that have come in the last couple of years, and
Right.
being able to bridge the conversations across people that are newer to this versus people that were kind of the founding ideators was really quite an honor. And so, now it's past president, so it's supporting the president, and Ashley's doing an incredible job there. And it's looking, kind of coming back to my passion around the certification and what does it mean to be a certified financial therapist, and continuing to reflect on how do financial therapists grow? What does it take to become a financial therapist? Both on
Mhm.
that kind of academic, intellectual side, but also on the personal journey side.
Right.
And
So
that,
important.
something I think as a community of therapists we get, but the financial planning community doesn't have that same experience. So that's
Mm-hmm.
a bridge that we're figuring out how to cross.
Yeah, and like trailblazing what it needs to look like, or even just saying this has worked in other industries. Can it work here in financial therapy? So, a question that I love to ask colleagues who are financial therapists, because our discipline is still young in the grand scheme of things, is how do you
Absolutely.
describe financial therapy to folks who are like, I've never heard of this? I love to ask colleagues this.
That is a good question. And I think what I said up until about a year ago was that we really are focused on people's variety of thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and kind of sense of self and sense of others that come up around money. And if it falls in any of that, it's fair game for financial therapy.
Yeah.
That's, and so, but I think at that another level is it's usually where there's some level of psychological and relational distress around money,
Mhm.
right? They're on that side of the human functioning continuum. And so we're looking at how restoration, therapeutic, right? And so when folks that are feeling pretty stable, a pretty good sense of goal direction, a healthy sense of who I am and the role of money, those are not the people that are coming up for financial therapy,
Right. Right.
right? They're working with planners, maybe a coach to kind of go to that next level. But the folks that come to financial therapy are like really overwhelmed by money. They feel scared. They feel ashamed. And so they have these psychological patterns and problems. But this is why I love financial therapy and I'm reminded of, is I've come back into financial planning,
Mm.
right? So I worked for the last 8 years as a couples therapist, really on that. What does it mean to be a therapist and all that jazz? But as I came back now to be a family financial planner, holding in therapy and the financial therapy, what I would add to that definition of what it means to be a financial therapist is that financial planning is its own form of financial therapy.
Mm.
The process of actually slowing down and looking at your numbers, your net worth statement, the way you approach insurance, the way you
Right.
approach your taxes, the way you approach education funding, the way you approach estate planning, all those major domains are on the table. And
Mhm.
what's interesting is in some ways financial therapy feels as easy as it ever has for me, and in other ways it feels as complex as it ever has.
Uh-huh. I hear that. Especially as
Right?
you're talking, I'm like, there's some things there. Yeah.
There is, I think as therapists we can appreciate that there really is simplicity and complexity that interweave, and we move back and forth between trying to distill it to its essence, and yet not losing the fact that, well, this is complex and so many intersecting factors all at play,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
So honoring that like folks have different agendas or different goals of why they come into financial therapy versus financial planning. I feel like this is the time to say like your book is a part of this. So hey, viewers, look, here's Ed's book.
Yeah,
This almost creates another lens to look at some of this through, right? Of like attachment styles. So can you talk to our viewers about this book and how it could be helpful to them as therapists?
yeah, absolutely. I think one of those things that we get so focused in on as therapists is what's kind of your theoretical lens. And
Mm-hmm.
some people become very die-hard about a particular theoretical lens, and some people remain very eclectic, looking through all these different lenses. And I went through a season where I was very focused on attachment theory and seeing as much as I possibly could, what can I get out of looking through the lens of attachment theory.
Mm-hmm.
And some of that was personal journey, some of that was the requirements of being in a doctoral studies program that I did not finish. That's a different story. But the book came out of that season of being in the third graduate degree for the PhD, trying to figure out what do I actually mean by financial therapy? How does this impact me?
Mm-hmm.
Um, how do I communicate this? And really, how do I communicate this in a non-academic way? Because
Yeah.
academic writing is its own beast and had exhausted me.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that's what I love about your writing style in this book is like we hear some of your personal stories so people get to know you. And then you had some examples of, near the end of the book of like, here's a attachment style in a couple. And you like gave two examples of contrasting couples. And I know the
Right.
therapy community craves examples. So I was like, yes, I love this. And that's why I want to call it out in this video of like, I think people are going to be like, well, tell me what that looks like in the room to have an anxious attachment or avoidant attachment in couples with money. And I feel like you did a beautiful job of like weaving your story in and then saying, here's what it could look like in the therapeutic space.
Yeah, I'm so glad that that came through. That was the intention. This is to be vulnerable and honest about my own story and my own journey, and for me, up to the point of writing the book, attachment theory was, of the different lenses, the one that really just hit home the most. And I think I write about this in the book, but it didn't start that way. I
Mm-hmm.
actually really despised attachment theory for a long time.
Oh, I don't think you used that language in the book, but that's interesting.
That might be stronger language than what made it in the book.
Yeah.
Um, but the before, because I didn't have an undergrad in psychology, I had an undergrad in business. And so when I'm in grad school studying psychology really formally for the first time, and you get presented with Harry Harlow's Rhesus Monkey study, and the business guy in me is like, what the F does this have to do with anything? And kind of how am I going to tie this to solving people's money problems? Like, I'm here to solve people's money problems. Why are we looking at monkeys? That says
Fair.
something
It's a fair question.
at that stage of life. Um, but it's as life unfolded and more softening, more comfortable with introspection, and really ultimately accepting, yep, my family did shape and influence me. It's not the only factor, but it is a factor that I need to look at closely.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and so for me, attachment theory really provided that language of understanding and also paints that picture of what does it mean and look like to actually be in a healthy
Hmm. Yeah.
relationship with
So
self,
important.
relationship with others. And that's, I think, fundamentally what's the challenge for most people when they're navigating their money dynamics is their sense of who they are, their sense of who the other person is, and they're negotiating back and forth between that.
Hmm.
Right? And so,
Yeah.
yeah, it is about how do we allocate money for present day needs, and it is about how do we allocate money for today versus a few years from now and 20 years from now,
Hmm.
or to the next generation. But at the end of the day, it's still about how do I see myself and how do I see you?
Hmm.
Are you going to be there with me or are you going to reject me? Can I count on you? Can I trust you? Can you trust
Hmm.
me? Right? Which those are
Powerful.
patterns of attachment.
Right.
Do I feel safe to be vulnerable with you about what I'm hoping for and desiring, as well as what I'm terrified of having play out? And
Yeah.
how do you
Yeah.
manage that when I talk about that with you?
Well, and as you're saying that to me, Ed, I'm thinking of these viewers obviously haven't seen this video, but the video we did of a role play of a couple I
Yeah.
actually had shown to a colleague, and they were like, "This is amazing. Why is this not out there for all of us to see?" And I'm like, "It is. It's over here." But in that video, you did such a beautiful job of like, we were, myself and a colleague were the couple, and Ed was the therapist, of course, for viewers who were wanting to know what this looked like. And we had this like conflict of like that trust and like the volatility, and then you like brought us together in this like very gentle way where we actually like softened on the video of like, oh, I'm not like gonna cuss you out right now, or oh, I'm not in a complete hostile headspace. And it was just so beautifully done that people were like, this is awesome, and yes, more of this. So I share that with viewers to say like there is content that shows what this truly looks like to have this attachment aspect come in to like couples work or even just individuals who have a money belief that's pretty awful and is causing them to not attach well to their partner or is causing conflict. So I just want to call that out in this video of like, I think you need to put that out a little bit more of like, hey, here's what it looks like.
Well, and so just, I mean, if people haven't figured it out, I have an anxious attachment. I'm working on my earn secure attachment merit badge. I'm an old Boy Scout, so I'm gonna call it a merit badge.
Love that.
I, I know that's not how it's really talked about, but actually, I've never called it my earn secure merit badge, but I kind of like it. It feels good for me.
I like
So
it. Mm-hmm.
anyhow, yeah, it is, money is a relational process. Right. And so very few money experiences, and especially painful money experiences, happen in the absence of relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need a relational lens to understand why we feel the pain and anxiety and the shame around money. So whether it's
Right.
our parents fighting with each other or not tending to things that need to happen, or between us as kids, or with our siblings, or in the broader culture, it's money itself is not causing the problem. It's the humans connected to the money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A dollar bill laying on my countertop cannot hurt me. $10,000 sitting in my bank account cannot hurt me.
Hmm.
$1 million in my family trust fund cannot hurt me. But the meaning given to each of those amounts and the people connected to can either magnify the quality of my life or deteriorate it.
Hmm.
And
Wow.
so money is a highly relational process. And it's no wonder we feel so conflicted and tripped up because we also don't just have a monolithic experience.
Mm-hmm.
We have conflicting experiences. Sometimes money is used in a loving way, and in the next moment, it's used to control us.
Right. Right. So
And in the
complex.
next minute, it's used to celebrate us. And in the next moment, it's used to motivate us.
Mm-hmm.
And in the next moment, it's used to shame us. So we have all these different experiences with money.
Which is why I think you and I love being in spaces where we can help do this work or like create a safe container for people to look at all the emotions and thoughts and behaviors around money. And so for our audience of therapists, this is a resource. This is another way to bring in attachment into some money work if it shows up in the therapy space, if it's the mental health, stress, anxiety, shame, stuff there. Um, so I kind of two questions for you, Ed. Where can people find the book to like take this deeper dive that we're alluding to? That's question one.
Very easy, Amazon.com, and Audible. I mean, it's so you can listen to it or you can read it or both if you're someone like myself who is like, I want a physical copy and I want to listen to it. Because
Awesome.
the reality is listening to it and I read it. So listening to it, you get something different than just reading it, right? And
Yeah.
so like, that can be valuable. And I don't know what your second question is, so I don't want to overstep it, but one of the things that I love about therapists is that we're trained to think about we got to do our own work.
Mm-hmm.
And so, therapists, we have this extra burden and opportunity to do our own money work. And my book is not the only one, it's one of many great books.
Mm-hmm.
If you're trying to better understand your relationship with money, jump on in, start with my book. There's lots of reflective questions to help you
Mm-hmm.
take this further. Like, okay, I read this, I read that. What does this mean? How does it apply to me?
Yeah.
Um,
I liked that where it had like this like literal lines of like you could write in this book if you want to for folks that were taking that in. So yeah,
it,
obviously you know me and I know you, so we both are champion like do your own work. Like that's definitely something we both subscribe to in the therapy community. So whether it's picking up a copy of the book on Amazon or checking out the Audible version, absolutely, I think that's worth naming. Just an invitation for our viewers of this video to be like, hey, is there something you want to take a deeper dive around with attachment? If they nerd out around attachment like I do, they might be like, I just want to know there's a book about money and attachment. Like that's amazing. Because that's not been written before, right?
no, there are no books in the marketplace that weave attachment theory and money together. And um, and so that, the business part of business entrepreneurial part of me is like opportunity in the marketplace.
Yep.
This is a unique lens and angle.
Yeah.
Um, and so I will also tease it out. This also will hold me accountable as I have another book that's been brewing for a few years, and I was talking
Mm,
with some of my colleagues recently. And this conversation is pushing my needle further into like it might be time to birth the next one. Because so just as that previews, what's unfolded for me since I've written the book is I've gone deeper into interpersonal neurobiology,
mm,
right? And so for me, the way I understand it is attachment theory then is embedded within this bigger scope of understanding humans through the lens of interpersonal neurobiology. And so I've gotten a lot more interest in the somatic side of money, and the neuroscience. And so those are lenses that I will go deeper into the next time. And I'm going to be writing with the lens of financial intimacy being the thread line this next
amazing.
time. So
Hmm.
that's coming. I don't, it's still nervous, but I'm holding myself accountable to putting it out there in the world.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, so exciting. Thanks for trusting us to say, I'm going to put this in this video. And you know me, I'm a huge champion of writing, and I think I'm a little addicted to writing. So anyone who's like, I have another book in me, I'm like, heck yeah, you do. Let's do it. Let's write it. Let's put it out there. Especially
uh,
the entrepreneur side of us, which is like, if it's not been written, it
Yeah,
deserves to be written. If there's a market or a gap or a pain point that's not being addressed, like that's a green light for me. And it sounds like for you too.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
So, question two was actually how can people reach you? Because part of this is like they now know who you are and what you're up to and your specialties. How can
Yeah.
people get in touch when they want to hear, maybe they want to refer someone to you or they want to learn more about the process of attachments? Like, what would that look like?
All right. Well, this, I'm going to build off of what you were just saying. Part of the reason why I'm comfortable sharing this in this community is because therapists are some of the safest, most supportive people I know, and I feel some tears coming up because
Hmm,
I think that's what we need. That's the value we bring to the world, and so I'm grateful for this community that's gathered that you've cultivated. Um, and it's now I've just lost my track because I'm so like just feeling the juju.
feeling those feelings.
Okay, hello, Phillies. Thank you for showing up. Where am I trying to go right now? People can find me. So that's what I was trying to get to is Healthy Love and Money is the name of my company. It's the name of the website. It's the name of my podcast. It's my Instagram handle. So that would be a great way to start. And what if people like the book and they want to go further with more exercises and really through this lens of financial intimacy, so I have a course called The Couple's Guide to Financial Intimacy, and there's 10
Awesome.
modules, and we go from communication into brain science, into attachment, into social class, into family systems, into
Mm-hmm.
trauma. And there's one or two other modules I'm not remembering off the top of my head, but it was designed and developed with non-therapists in mind. But I think if you're trying to figure out how these things that I'm already so familiar with tie into people's relationship with money, that course would be like a very nice place to go and
Absolutely.
amp up a little bit further. So,
Yeah. I mean, how could you not do your own work going through a course like that and then also seeing how it's applicable to clients? I mean, that's the beauty of professional development, continuing education, self-therapist work is like anything we do has hopefully a positive ripple effect onto the clients we serve. So I love
yeah.
that.
Yes.
Awesome.
What else?
So the other thing I think I want to call out for folks is you have a quiz on the website too. So if people are like, hey, I'm not into reading, I might get the Audible version. Like, talk to us about this quiz that I've actually sent to a lot of people.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. You're the person that why I have all these new, no, it's,
Yeah, might be. No, I mean like pat on the back. I don't think it's just me, but yeah, like we like find value in it and it's well written and very thoughtful and not pathologizing, but I think it's worth calling out here in the video.
I appreciate that. Yeah. So the quiz, you can connect to through the book. And this is the entrepreneur in me showing up is like, I don't have a direct link to the quiz. I think it's, if you go to
Mm,
my website and you hang out for 15 seconds, it'll pop up.
right.
So that's how you access it. Just hang on the website for 15 seconds, it'll pop up, it'll do its thing. But the quiz comes from the book, right? And it's really designed to be connected in that you'll take the quiz and it's my best assessment of how these attachment styles map onto patterns of money. And there's a handful of questions that ask, and then it sorts you into secure, anxious, avoidant, or disorganized. And then has a
Okay.
few follow-up emails that kind of describe some of what will likely is happening and some of the other ways to think about working with it. So yeah, that's a great way to kind of do. I imagine most of the people in this group will probably already, if they're familiar with attachment styles, are like, shit, I already know I'm anxious. How does that map onto
We
my
would
relationship
hope
with money?
so. We
Or
would
I
hope
already know I'm
so.
avoidant. I'm always biased. I don't know, Kara, if you know this. I assume all therapists are anxious attachment. And every time I hear a therapist say they're avoidant, I'm like, wait, that's possible? But
It does
it,
seem like
it,
a little stretch of the mind to say, how would you show up with that attachment style? I think anxious, I mean, just like we all assume we have our own trauma story or our own trauma stuff that has also catapulted us into a therapeutic role with some healing. Like that was the
yeah,
common question in grad school, at least for my program, is like, why are you here? Was it because you were a confidant and natural, person that people would tell things to, or is it because you had your own trauma, had some healing, and want to pass that on to others, or a combination of both? I mean, obviously those are pretty general categories, but for a lot of
right.
people, I hear some story like that. So why would
Yeah.
this not apply to saying, I know my anxious attachment style is showing up?
Well, and I'll add this in. I think this is part of that lens or view is part of the value for us in the therapy community to bring to the planning community. Because what I ask planners is, what in your own life motivate you to become a financial planner?
Mhm.
Because most of the planners that I have met have some combination of becoming the financially responsible one in the family and having lived through something very hard financially.
Mhm.
What that
Mhm.
is runs the full gamut. It's not just
Right.
having grown up in poverty or middle class. I mean, there's just such a wide scope of things that have happened that they're trying to make sense out of or to gain some sense of mastery around.
Mhm.
And this is what I think part of that financial therapy lens too is recognizing that um, the intellectual compulsive drive to understand things does not always bring things to resolution.
Mhm. Mhm.
Does that make sense?
It definitely does. I feel like for some people, it's like I peeled back one layer of the metaphorical pile.
Yes, right. And I think hmm, this is pejorative, and I'm just going to own it for that. Really great financial planners are just as obsessive about understanding money and trying to master it as therapists are about understanding themselves and other people. And there can
Mm.
be the healthy, productive side of that, and there can be that shadow side,
Yeah.
right? Like
Mhm.
that, like if I just understand the human condition and myself just a little bit better, then I'll finally be good. If I just understand how the stock market works a little bit better, oh, and let's throw in a tax strategy, then everything, I'll feel financially secure.
Mm.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is something I normalize with my individual clients, which are mostly therapists. Of you're doing your financial therapy work, you're looking at your own edges, and it's not like it's a one size fits all or a hey, if this was easy formula, we wouldn't have all these self-help books about money. Like, why would we write all the books we have if it's like this is how to do it and this is the only way to do it? So I challenge that right from the get-go.
Oh, and that is part of that humbling. That's why I alluded to is my book is one amongst many great books, and the attachment theory, and I think that's maybe what I was wanting to say earlier in this interview is for a while I kind of just married to myself as like attachment theory is the view of the world, and to try to milk it for all it was worth, and yet now like in remembering it is a theoretical lens for understanding us. Let's remember that.
Right.
Many
Right.
great ways to understand the human condition. And so, spend the time, use it, make the most out of it, but don't be shy about reading other financial self-help books that have a psychological lens to them.
Yeah, absolutely. When I love this gentle reminder of like there's always something more to discover and not to like put everything in one box and say this is the lens I look through. I don't think most modern therapists do one theoretical orientation or one modality. Like we're all pretty eclectic, whether people like that word or not. I think it is because the clients need whatever they need, and we need to show up with like this is something to try, and it might be attachment, it might be CBT, it might be something else, it might be neuroscience. But
Yeah,
that's why people come to us is that we have a whole toolkit of things that we can provide.
indeed, indeed.
Awesome. Well, I love this interview, Ed. I love hearing more about the book. Again, for viewers, this is the cover, so you can see it. It's on Amazon, there's Audible, but yeah, you get to learn more about Ed's story as to why he went on this journey towards attachment, and now it sounds like neuroscience of financial intimacy coming up. And just really appreciate all your wisdom and your time today, Ed, and what you have to share. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kara. I appreciate the work that you're doing in the world too to help all of us therapists.
Thank you. Viewers, stay tuned for more videos. We'll see you next time.